Hey, what
Well, hey,
fun.
here we are again. Boy, a five for a set.
It sure was. You want to run down the set list? I don't have it in front of me.
Well, perhaps we'll do that when we bring in our guest because he was watching too. I'll just say
Oh,
that
let's,
was a beautiful and wide-ranging bird song to end that set, and then a hairpin turn into "Don't Ease Me In." That was just delightful. Before we bring in our guest, we do want to tell you what's going on here. I'm Gary Lambert. He's David Gans, and this is a new feature of these live streams. Instead of you looking at a sign that says "Please stand by" for about half an hour to 45 minutes, you get to look at and listen to us as we talk about stuff and bring in guests and have a lot of fun. Uh, if you just saw the free preview of that first set and are hungry for more, of course, you can purchase the whole show at livedead.co, which will take you to nugs.net. And you can buy one show, you can buy the whole tour as much as you want. In the meantime, we're here talking to you. And those of you who have already subscribed, we thank you. And we are about to bring in our first guest, aren't we?
I think so. But before that, we should also mention that if you are watching this little free preview between sets and you decide to sign up for set 2 of this show, you can still watch the first set on demand. And also that your subscription to Nugsnet gives you access to the entire archive of Dead and Company shows going back to 2016. That's what they
That's right.
hired us to
And
do. Now we're going to shoot the shit with our special guest.
yes, we can also say, though, that nugs.net, if you do subscribe, you can get a whole lot of music from a whole lot of great bands, including Fish, Santana. I think Wilco is on there. Some of my favorites. So, and I'm sure some of yours as well. And yeah, so that's really worthwhile. And I think we should also mention that our employers, Sirius XM Radio, where David and I have been yapping at each other for more than 13 years on Tales from the Golden Road, now has a platinum subscription that includes nugs.net content. So if you go to SiriusXM.com, you can get even more music, and who would ever complain about that? And now, how about we bring in our first guest?
I'm for it.
Okay, well, he was supposed to be with us on night one. Our opening show was truncated by bad weather, so we wanted to do him justice by having him on for the full set break. And we couldn't be happier that he was able to do it with us tonight. So he's still our first guest on this program. So will you please welcome musician, producer, record company president, and Wolf Bro in fine standing, our friend Don Was. Don?
Hello.
Hey
There he
guys,
is.
how you doing? Yeah,
Great. Great to
Nice
see you,
to see you.
Don.
good. All right, I gotta line up with you guys. I can see the three boxes. So.
Yeah,
There
you're
we
good.
go.
We
Now,
got you.
not three musketeers. God.
Indeed. So you watched that first set along with us. So did you enjoy
Yeah,
yourself?
I love that set, man. I'm seeing some really cool things happening. The last two shows, I love the conversation that's going on between Jeff and John. They're getting
Oh,
into
good.
some
Always.
real deep stuff, really locked together. And I'm noticing that there's some very interesting rhythmic things happening with O'Teal and Bobby. They're locking super tight.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like that whole when they went into that shuffle in the middle of Birdsong, man, that was awesome, And it just happened so subtly. Bobby just shifted up and started playing that thing, and everyone just picked up on it. You know, the level of communication going on so far this tour is really exciting.
Yeah.
You
And only
came
two shows in.
from a whole different universe. I'm really interested in your impressions of. I mean, I first met you almost 40 years ago when I was a journalist, and you were in Was Not Was, which was an amazing band. I totally loved that band and what you
Thank
guys
you,
had
man.
going. And we had conversations then about the state of the music business and how these things work. And in the intervening decades, the whole music business has turned upside down, and now the rest of the world has come around to this Grateful Dead way of doing things. I'm dying to know what you think of all this.
Well, you mean of just what's happened to the? It's still about great songs. It's still about playing them soulfully. It's still about conveying your inner emotional life to other people, communicating that so that they feel something. May not be the same thing you're feeling, but they feel something, and that helps them understand life, man. Life is nuts. You know, we don't know if we're going to die in the next 10 seconds. We don't know if we're going to get fired in the next 10 seconds. There's very little you can hang your hat on, and it's confusing. We don't even really know why we're here, you know. So that can be a lot to deal with, let alone pandemics and stuff like that. So anything that brings you some comfort, that helps you understand what's going on inside, or just makes you feel good for a few minutes, man, that's such a valuable thing, and that has not changed.
Thank
Only
you.
the
Indeed.
deliver, and even
Yeah,
some of
and
the things, you know.
as you were talking about the quality of the song, the quality of emotional expression, and what I
Mhm.
find is that as musicians grow up, to whatever extent musicians ever grow up at all, um, they learn more about nuance and saying more with less and not being in such a hurry to say anything. There's always a conversation about tempos with Dead and Company and other bands.
Mhm.
I love the amount of space they leave between the beats and the statements they make between the beats. Um,
Yeah.
I saw a beautiful quote. I just saw a documentary about Louis Armstrong, and Wynton Marsalis commented on how people criticized Louis later in his life because he wasn't playing with the same insane fast virtuosity, and Wynton
Mhm.
said people didn't understand that was some of his greatest playing, because he said the greatest sign of technique is nuance. That takes the most
Yeah.
genius, is to convey nuance. And I think
Yeah.
that's really true in what Dead and Company are doing.
It's really, man, you know, like look, I know we take some shit about playing the songs too slow and, and Voice Brothers. I'm aware of it, but understand what Bobby's trying to do, which is to deliver the song soulfully. He doesn't want to race through it. Sometimes they have a lot of syllables, and I've been enjoying watching him sing these last two shows because I don't normally get to see his face. You know, I see him from
Ah,
behind, and he's really in these songs, and his facial expressions and his gestures, they all convey the deeper meaning of the song, and he's about telling the story, and he's about telling it in a fresh way every single night, is becoming that character in the song, and delivering it. And sometimes you got to slow the tempos down to to get the words out with nuance, and to leave the space that you were talking about, Gary. I know that's not for everybody. I know some people like to groove a lot, and it's finding the way to groove and deliver the songs at the same time. It's an ongoing
Yeah.
process, and it changes from night to night, of course. You know.
well,
They
we're,
had some great groups going tonight, man. I thought "Feel Like a Stranger" that had a real deep pocket in it, man. That was good.
Mhm.
When we're done tonight, I'm texting Bobby and asking him to please add that to our repertoire.
very good. Very
Nice.
good. Well, I like
That's a,
the fact that there's room to walk around in between the voices and the notes in this music. I've always thought that. I came into this Grateful Dead world in 1974 when the stage setup was really simple, and the system was incredibly articulate, and you could hear everybody. You knew what each person was doing, and
mhm.
that's this particular version. The thing that you're doing with Wolf Bros and this, it seems to have that same kind of clarity, even though there are more instruments on stage. There's just
Yeah.
everybody's leaving room for each other, and that's a really important quality of this music.
I'll tell you something I've really learned from playing with Bobby, and that is not to play the chords. Don't play notes. Play the song, man. Like, listen to the lyrics in your head. Be focused on that, not the bars or the chords. You know what I'm saying? Like, listen to the lyric, and imagine if you were singing it. Now I sing them all in my head, and I question, do I really need this note? No, actually, this note gets in the way of me finishing the phrase the way I want it to. So the thing that keeps me excited and super interested these days is trying to play as little as possible. Only the things that are really important. You know, Ron Carter I think the title of his autobiography, in fact, is like Finding the Right Notes or something like that. Just play the right notes. You don't have to play 10 million notes. Just what advances the narrative and what advances the music and what keeps people's bodies moving at the same time. And
Yeah,
it's amazing how little that has to be.
I texted John after last night's show, and I told him that his solo on Death Don't Have No Mercy was everything a blues guitar solo should be, and too seldom is,
Yeah.
because a lot of
Yeah.
purported blues players are all about the pyrotechnics. And John's solo
Yeah.
was all about not playing a lot of notes, but making every note matter in the service of the story,
That's exactly right. You really see him maturing as an artist, right in front of your eyes.
We're talking with Don Was. You might recognize him from his quiet spot at the back of the stage with Wolf Bros, but the man has had a huge life in the music business. As I mentioned earlier, I first met him in the 80s when he was doing this wonderful band called Was Not Was. And he's gone on to this illustrious career in the music business, and he's currently the head of Blue Note Records. And one of the things, in fact, that leads me to ask you about this Dave McMurray album that just knocked me out. Tell us about that.
Dave's awesome. Well, Dave really didn't grow up listening to the Grateful Dead. He's one of my old friends from Detroit, and in 2000, I think it was 2018. I put a band together. They asked me to put a band together for Hardly Strictly, and I'd never done a gig under my own name before in my life. But Dave was part of it, and it was a really, really great band. We had a couple of singers from Was Not Was, Sweet Pea Atkinson, and Sir Harry Bones, and the McCrary sisters, and Terrence Blanchard, great jazz trumpeter, and 3 drummers. It was very cool. And Bobby came up and did Days Between with us. And I believe that was really Dave's McMurray's first exposure to Grateful Dead stuff, and it blew his mind, man. And then he started getting deep into it. By the time we went back out on tour as the Wolf Brothers and we hit Detroit, he came out and played with us, and he blew the roof off the place. So he just wanted to play these songs, but filter it through his sensibilities, which are very Detroit. It's a very Detroit, which is a kind of jazz R&B version of the thing. But Detroit music's kind of raw, so there's a rawness to it. It's different, but it's great, and he's totally inside these songs. We went to see him play at Terrapin Crossroads on Saturday in the afternoon, and it was really exciting to see this now in front of a real Deadhead audience, man. And it got over. It's actually, a lot of the songs surpassed the record, and he's finding it. It's getting better every day. I hope people get a chance to catch him. And
the record, for those who aren't aware of it, the album is called Grateful Dedication, and it's on Blue Note Records. The artist is Dave McMurray, not David Murray, the other great jazz saxophonist.
They actually know each other and have played together before, too.
I'm not surprised. But for Deadheads out there that are interested in hearing the story told in a different voice, this is an entirely worthwhile record. So much of it, it's mostly instrumental, but there's a vocalist on Touch of Grey, and the way he reharmonized the verses on Touch of Grey is just incredibly. It's a whole new emotional journey, and I love it.
That's good, man. I'm glad to hear that. We played on it. So Bobby and the Wolf Brothers backed him up on Loser with Betty LaVette singing lead vocals. Beautiful. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, we featured 3 tracks on our radio show, and the response has been wonderful. And we had Dave on, I think Sunday before last, and he was so happy about the way it came out and the way people are responding to it. So I can't wait to see how that develops. When you go into a jazz club and play like 5 nights and just build from there, that's the real proof of what you can do with the material. So I can't wait until Dave has a chance to really tour this stuff. Speaking of Blue Note, did you ever imagine, I know you grew up loving jazz and, are a deep collector and appreciator. when you were in Was Not Was, could you ever have imagined that you would be president of what is arguably the greatest jazz label of all time?
No, man. Not only that, I couldn't. My whole goal in life was to never have a job, man. I just wanted to get through without lifting heavy stuff, and I didn't want. I never considered playing music or producing records to be a job. You know, I'd have done that for free. That's just fun, and I was doing pretty well. I was in my late 50s, and then it just it came up out of nowhere, man, and it was irresistible. I'll be honest with you, man. I always thought the record company was the enemy. That was really how I looked at it. I think a lot of musicians look at it that way. They come down, tell you the wrong thing to do, interrupt your sessions, and then if it sells anyway, they steal your money. That was my impression of record companies. But what I've learned from 10 years of working at Blue Note with an incredible group of people is that it's mostly a bunch of young people who love music, and they'll stay in the office till 11 o'clock at night just to help get the records out. And they may not even ever meet the artist or know the artist, but they're just dedicated. That's essentially who makes up the record company. It's the real workers, you know. And so I've mellowed in my hostility towards record companies.
I guess you have to when you're the boss.
I keep conflicted every day.
We should
Otherwise,
quickly
yeah. But
mention
I see the good we do, and but it's incredible to be the caretaker of that legacy. I was a huge fan of Blue Note from the time I was 14. I was driving around with my mom running errands on a Sunday back in Detroit, right? 14, and I couldn't drive, so she was dragging me into stores, and I turned into like this real crabby, ornery kid, right? Finally, she left me in the car with the keys to the ignition just so I could turn it on and play with the radio. She got sick of dragging me through the stores. I was playing with the dial. I was going to my favorite R&B station, which if anyone is listening from Detroit, it was a station called WCHB, 1440 AM. And unbeknownst to me, on Sundays, they broadcast jazz from their sister station, WCHD. And I tuned in just in time to hear the saxophone solo from what I later learned was a song called Mode for Joe by Joe Henderson, which is a Blue Note record. I didn't know anything about jazz. I'd never listened to any of it. And this solo, it comes on, you can check it out. It's up on Spotify. You can hear it. And it's about 1:26 into the song. He starts, it's not even notes. It's not technique. You don't hear reeds. You hear like anguished cries. He goes, and it jolted me, but it matched my mood. Okay, I felt that much angst getting dragged around into these stores when I wanted to be hanging out at the mall or whatever, right? So, so about 20 seconds into the song, the drummer, who's a guy named Joe Chambers, who still records for Blue Note, he kicks in on the ride cymbal, and Joe Chambers makes Joe Henderson fall in line. And the message that came through to me in that music was Joe Henderson speaking to me and saying, "Don, you got to groove in the face of adversity." And it was wild, man, because it changed my mood in about 3 minutes. I was a happy kid. My mom got back in the car. I was a nice guy again, and it was an incredible demonstration of the power of music. But it also made me like a huge fan. I wanted to know more about this, so I went out and bought an FM radio so I could listen to the jazz station. And then I started collecting the records because turns out they all had these really cool covers, and I loved the music, and the whole milieu seemed incredible. There were these great black and white photos with like just cool looking guys holding the saxophone, smoking cigarettes, and I just wanted to be part of it. And I collected the records all my life, and then it was just really a freak breakfast, where a conversation over breakfast, and I got offered the job. This one I was in New York producing John Mayer's album, Born and Raised, in fact, in 2011, one day before the session. And
were
so
you
I've been doing it
instrumental in introducing John Mayer and Bob Weir? Did I hear that?
Say it again?
That you had something to do with John Mayer and Bob Weir meeting?
Well, while I made I've made 3 records with John. The newest one, Sob Rock, and 2 about 10 years ago, born and raised in Paradise Valley, right? And so I spent a considerable amount of time with him. And every time we get in his car, he had the Sirius XM Grateful Dead channel on. And I was really surprised. He was like this huge Deadhead, and he could identify, man, like, no, that's not 1979, that's 78. You know, he knew exactly what was going on and had really studied the stuff and was aspiring, I think, to get some of that improvisational stretching out in his own music. So about a year or two later, I'm in my Blue Note office, and Bobby and Mickey came to see me about Blue Note putting out some of their solo records, and John was working in the studio downstairs. So I said, "Get up here, man! You won't believe who's in my office." It's at Capitol Records, right? You know, the round Capitol Tower. So John comes up, and he meets them, and they're like stunned to see how into the Dead he is, right? And how much he's listened to it and studied it. So he said, "Well, come on up and play, man." You know, Bobby said that and invited John up, and one thing led to another, and I drove up there with him. I was hoping someone would ask me to play bass, but but John had really, I did play a little bit, but John had really studied, you know, what was going on there, and kind of in the interim between when he met Bobby and Mickey and when we actually drove up to San Fran, he woodshedded the songs, really, you know, learned the songs, and you could tell from the first second that there was chemistry. It was obvious to everybody in the room, and even the most jaded people aboard, AJ and everyone's, you know, like, who were just like going about their business and not paying attention. Everyone kind of stopped and thought, okay, this is another level of weaving it together. And it's been incredible to see the thing mature. And so far, these first two shows, I thought have been killer. And the musical conversation that's happening on stage is getting real powerful.
Yeah, and speaking of things maturing, the evolution of Wolf Bros has been another great thing. And this is really consistent with the way Bob Weir has conducted his musical career from the start. In 1964, he said, "Hey, why don't we throw a jug band together and see what happens?" And we saw what happened. And then when he was looking for an extracurricular project after the Grateful Dead, he said he was playing with Rob Wasserman and he was playing with Jay Lane. So let's put a little 4-piece kind of blues band together and see what happens. And that turned into Rat Dog. And again, with Wolf Bros, he starts a 3-piece with you and Jay, and it has evolved and refined. And they said, let's put Jeff Cometti in the mix. And one of the great hires for me was Greg Lees, who I've loved playing with everyone from Joni Mitchell and Jackson Browne to artists you know well, like Bill Frisell and Charles Lloyd. And he just fits perfectly. And then came the Wolf Pack. And I'd really like to know how that step happened.
How the Wolf Pack happened? It's tied into, Bob's been working on this share that for Grateful Dead songs that I don't know if things have been announced yet, so I don't want to mess up here. So
alluded
let's
to
just suffice it to say he's been working on it, and I think he wanted to have some members of the orchestra could travel with us and knew the songs a little more intimately and who could solo on it. So we auditioned some people specifically for that, but it started sounding really cool. So we thought we did a live stream on New Year's Eve. We did about 4 or 5 from TRI during the quarantine, right? And we just started incorporating it, and it was really good, man. We really loved it. So we took them out to, we did 4 nights in Colorado, 2 at Red Rocks, 2 in Vail, and we played the Berkeley Greek not too long ago. And people seem to dig it. It's a whole other thing. But to your point, Gary, man, yeah, Bob is willing to spend a couple years getting the foundation tight. And we had to all figure out, I mean, obviously Jay and Bobby have been playing together 25 years. They don't have to figure out anything. But how this particular approach to being a trio would work. I'm not Rob. You know, Rob was, you know, virtuosic in the highest degree. He was a buddy of mine. I produced him, in fact, Rob Wasserman. And then Bobby just called me up one day in 2016, and he said, I had a dream that Wasserman came to me, and he said, and Rob had introduced us in the '90s. We had, and he said that Rob came to me and he said the reason I introduced you to Don is that when I'm not around, he should play bass. So
Wow.
so he dreamt the whole thing. He dreamt Rob talking to him. He dreamt that we started a trio. He dreamt it was all acoustic bass, and he dreamt the name Wolf Brothers, Wolf Bros, out of nowhere, man. He said, "So you want to do it?" It's like, yeah. But I'll be honest with you, it's still an ongoing process, and that's the fun of it. I hope it's always an ongoing process. But it took a minute to figure out how to play with Jay and Bobby. You have the specter, not Phil Spector, but the specter of Phil, right? Hanging over you. Like how do
Well put.
how do you approach these things? I don't know how to play like Phil. Nobody knows how to play like Phil. So don't you can't. Yeah, actually, the most Grateful Dead thing you can do is play like yourself.
Yes.
And whatever. Don't play the same thing you played the night before or any night before.
Right.
Always approach it with a beginner's mind. That's what Phil does. But if I were to try to be karaoke Phil, I'd fail and it would suck. So
Yeah.
I know Bobby wanted room to phrase, and he was not. He had no qualms about telling me when I was playing too much. And we'd sit and listen to shows. We still do sit and listen to shows afterwards and analyze what's going on, and just try to refine it. And of course, when you listen to it, you realize that. I realized that I was thinking, I have all this important information on the bass to impart to everybody, and just bullshit, man. Just sing the song and play the song, and don't be Jocko. Don't have to do that. But there was already a Jocko. There's already a Phil. There's really no point in repeating that.
And because of that.
Let me just praise Oteil for a second, because I think he's awesome. He's found a way to really get up there and stretch and still keep the groove going, which is really hard.
That's the thing about this kind of music. Robin Sylvester, who played with Rat Dog, is another one of those guys who does an amazing job of holding down the groove and participating in the conversation. And that's that's an important skill and a basis. But you keep it pretty basic most of the time. I don't see you up there in the upper registers much.
I can do it, but it's not. I come from Detroit, man, and that's like listen to George, listen to Bootsy. Well, of course, Jamerson was like a lead bass player, so maybe that's a terrible example.
that was a different kind of orchestration going on there.
Very different. Like nobody did that, man. That's the most innovative approach to bass ever, I think. But
I should interject quickly. We may have to go back stay in the groove pretty soon. Oh, I'm sorry. I just got to let people know what's going on here. We may be going back to the stage very soon, but we're going to keep talking with Don Was as long as we're able to. But we also need to remind you that this is a Nugsnet feed, and that if you're watching this free sample here with all this, you can subscribe to Nugsnet, you can subscribe to this tour, and you can buy individual shows at nugs.net. And that's what they hired us to say. So I got to say it, and then we can go back to talking with Don.
Right. You know what I've been doing during the shows? I've been playing. I've been practicing along with
you told us that.
I mentioned already.
I might get around to that too, but I've been dancing. So in my living room. But getting back to Wolf Bros for a moment, one of the miraculous things about the band is after you added Jeff and after you added Greg and then you added the Wolf Pack, there's still a lot of space in the music. Everyone knows what to leave out. And those horn players, they can play the written charts and then they can blow free. And it sounds like the written charts are changing from show to show too, because they come up with a different feel for what suits the moment. And that's just the perfect thing for Bobby. And I love the way that some of Bobby's guitar lines have been translated. His intro to Weather Report Suite got orchestrated for the horns and strings. Just really gorgeous ideas happening there.
Yeah, thank you, man. Well, one other cool aspect is getting to hear Bobby's guitar playing, because he
Yes.
blows my mind constantly. It's just nobody plays like him. You can pick him out in a couple of seconds, and he'll do stuff that'll be raw as John Lee Hooker, and then in the next 30 seconds do something so sophisticated. It's like Segovia. A couple of times he played Segovia licks, and I heard it. But he's constantly entertaining. Man, it's so much fun to play with him, and I'm glad people are getting a chance to hear what he does, because it's a singularly unique approach, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's a genius approach to playing guitar in a rock and roll band.
No one's ever done it like that. Yeah,
it's brilliant.
Yeah. Well, listen, Don, we are hearing the band is starting to move back toward the stage. We want to thank you so much for joining us, and glad you were able to. After we had to shut things down early on Monday, we're glad you could make it back. I was afraid that you were going to turn into the dead equivalent of Jimmy Kimmel's running joke with Matt Damon. Our apologies to Don Was, but.
Or Lindsey Buckingham down at the end of the couch, and what up with that?
Right. But you made it. We're really happy you did. And we look forward to talking to you on the radio and talking to you a whole lot more. So we're going to let you go. David and I, we're going to wrap up here. Hope to talk to you soon. Thanks so much, Don.
Thank you, Don.
Adios, man. Take care.
Yeah.
Adios.
And now we have to
All right.
BS until stage time. Well, let's remind
people. Yes.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, go ahead to you.
This is Nugsnet live stream of Dead and Company, and remember that you can subscribe to the entire tour at once, or you can subscribe to individual shows. They're offering 4K video this time around for the first time, for those of you who have the equipment to appreciate that. And there's also, as Gary mentioned earlier, there's a new Sirius XM VIP Platinum subscription that includes a whole bunch of stuff out of Nugs.net's library. And what else do we need to tell them? If you subscribe to Nugs.net, you can get access to every Dead show since 2016, plus 25,000 other shows from artists like Fish, Jerry Garcia Band, Rolling Stones, The Who, and Santana.
Not a bad deal at all. And we also want to mention, because it's an integral part of what we do and what Dead and Company do, we want you to support the organizations that are represented at these shows. The band always reaches out to the community to help out good causes. And the two major ones, of course, are Head Count, promoting democracy in a democratically threatened world, and the Rex Foundation, of course, the Grateful Dead's long-standing charitable arm that continues after almost 4 decades and is still going strong. So please go to their respective websites and check out what you can do to help there. And if you are going to shows during the tour, please go to the area known as Participation Row, where you can meet some of these people.
And that reminds me of another fact. If you bought a ticket to one of these Dead and Company shows, you are entitled to a free download of that show from Nugs.net. You take your ticket stub and go to Nugs.net, and you'll find instructions on how to cash that in. And I also wanted to mention, we've got a lot of guests lined up to do this halftime thing with us. And one of them is Cameron Sears, who's the executive director of the Rex Foundation. And we're going to be talking with him in a few days about all of Rex's great work. And we're hoping to actually get some informational audiovisual material to share with you about the work done by the beneficiaries of the Rex Foundation. You can always find out about Rex Foundation at rexfoundation.org. And as I'm seeing on my screen, you can donate to Headcount at 2nu.gs/headcount. But go to Headcount and you can learn how you can volunteer to work at shows, registering voters and get into shows for free and stuff like that. So both the Rex Foundation and Headcount have ways for community members to get involved in their work at the music gigs and stuff. So there might be a niche for you in there to do some public service work and get into shows and things like that as well.
Yes, and if you are just a viewer who wants to view from the sidelines or help in maybe not as direct ways, they also offer some incredible raffles and auctions of rare things that have been signed by band members. Beautiful guitars from D'Angelico, signed by the band. Some one of a kind things made for specific gigs. There have been some fantastic incentives for people to donate, take a chance on these raffles, or bid the highest on an auction. So that's another way that you can help these amazing organizations.
Yes,
and are we
indeed.
getting close to the band being back on stage?
I hope so.
Yes, because otherwise
Run out of
we
things
just have to
to
talk
say.
at you some more. Well, we'll never run out of things to say, but we may take a while to get to them. I'll tell you what, let's run down that first set list. That's always a way to vamp. The band
Really?
started with Cold Rain and Snow, then Feel Like a Stranger with that beautiful deep in the pocket groove that Don was alluded to. Mr. Charlie, Friend of the Devil, Dire Wolf, Liberty, that gorgeous and wide-ranging bird song, and then Don't Ease Me In. And if you want to find out what's happening in the second set, well, you can watch the one-song preview of the second set if you're watching this for free. But then if you are so enticed, you can also dive in deep and purchase the whole show, and then I think have a 48-hour on-demand window to watch it, which I strongly recommend. These shows are so beautifully shot. The music is so beautifully mixed. It's almost like being there, and yet I get to be on the couch. Best of both
And
worlds.
if you buy tonight's show now, after watching our little show here, you always can go back and watch the first set. So you can watch the second set live if you sign up now, and then go back and catch up on the first set as well.
It's a miraculous age we live in, isn't it?
It is. We can co-host a show without leaving our homes. That's a cool thing right there. I mean, there's part of me that wishes we were at the show, but there's a part of me that's 67 years old and getting kind of tired of schlepping around the country and all, and it's like okay to be at home too. And with the quality of the audio, I mean, we got clipped speakers in the living room, so we're hearing this in really good quality. And the mix is spectacular. The video quality is ridiculous. I didn't even have 4K, and it's just great in its HD form as it is.
Yeah, 4K might get frightening. I mean, you may be too close to the band. You might see every pore. I'm not sure, but they look pretty good though. Bobby's looking so tan and fit. His workout regimen has been working, hasn't it?
It appears to be, and we noticed too that John Mayer is wearing a cowboy hat tonight. What do you suppose is up with that?
That's right.
Does it mean
He lives
anything?
in Montana part of the time, so I guess he's earned it.
And I wonder how he keeps track of who he is. I mean, he's got this new album in his pop star guise, and I just see little clips of a new video on Twitter going by and stuff. And now he's over here doing this hippie stuff. I wonder how he keeps it straight in his mind.
Well, and then he can go to something like the Crossroads Guitar Festival and hold his own against the greatest blues players on the planet. He's a versatile guy, and his musical passions are wide ranging. And he's into jazz, and he's into hip hop, and he's into so much stuff. Incredibly knowledgeable about all kinds of music. I've had the pleasure of talking to him numerous times, and he's kind of the right guy for this job because he brings such a broad frame of reference to the music. As do Jeff, as do O'Teal.
This is music that really, really rewards big ears and calls into play influences from all over the place. So yeah, the more versatile your listening experiences are, the more versatile player you're going to be. I wonder if we're going to see the Fly Swatters again tonight.
I certainly hope so. I mean, I don't think they'd make a big investment in Fly Swatters unless they intended to use them on something other than flies. I found out there were fly swatters. Actually, Rhea Hart, Mickey's daughter, posted on Instagram a shot from behind the drums and showing Mickey's, and she said, "I wondered why they put out an order for 20 pairs of fly swatters for this tour." There it was. Anyway,
well, Find of Mickey Hart in 4K.
Yes. an amazing place to be at any time. Yeah, I want to talk more, but as this tour goes on, we can talk about all of Mickey's amazing and varied musical ventures. This thing, Sound Consciousness, he's done with Zakir Hussain, has been quite amazing. Music as a meditative tool and as a way to get those brain waves really in order. And everyone in this band has something cool going on. Of course, Billy Kreuzman with Billy and the Kids. Jeff is playing with Bobby and a bunch of other people. O'Teal's got his own ventures, O'Teal and Friends. And these people all bring this experience back to Dead and Company. And they have taken on new ideas and new things, and it enriches the music, as was always the case with the Grateful Dead. I always felt when Jerry came back from a Jerry Band tour, his playing in the Grateful Dead was enriched in some way, so all part of the process, and a really exciting one. So we are told we are close. We're close. We never know what that means in the Grateful Dead world. We never know what we'll be back in just a little bit means, because little bits are highly malleable units of measure, I have found over the last 50 plus years. Anyway.
Now we're noticing heavily the difference between doing a show in which we can just go to the phones and when we're stuck just talking to each other.
That's true. Maybe we'll start fielding like questions on Twitter that we can sort of filter through, and something like that.
Yeah, I actually think we should try and get somebody to call in from the venue too. Get an audience member to check in. We'll have to find out exactly what this technology allows. And the band is ready to go back to work, so let's stop working. Enjoy, everybody.
All right.
keep the mother